Yeah.
I'm thirsty.
It's Thursday.
Are you thirsty? I think I'm thirsty.
Normally I'm thirsty on Thursdays. I'm not quite sure if I'm thirsty for what we're going to do.
Welcome to Scotch for Dummies. It is Thursday night, and we are going to have some fun tonight.
The Bourbon Journey number 2.
The Bourbon Discovery Series continues with Scotch for Dummies. As you know, or maybe not know, we've spent the last 6 years doing Scotch. And we realized, you know what? There's other whiskeys out there. Believe it or not, there are whiskeys other than Scotch. And so we brought in some experts to give us some education on bourbon. And this is our second really bourbon episode where we really explore kind of what is with bourbons, what you can get, what you can expect, what's a high end, what's a low end, what's terroir. And tonight, it's what's terroir.
Yeah.
What?
Terroir. So I remember it's been, I think, probably damn near close to a month when we first kind of started this journey, and we brought in our good friend Jason to help us along. He showed us some really good stuff. I think we also did a blind with bourbon, and it was interesting to find out that rare breed is actually pretty palatable.
Well,
for most
Wild
of
Turkey
us.
Rare Breed was really,
you actually bought a
I
bottle.
bought a bottle. First bottle of bourbon I've ever purchased.
All right. Good job. Good
I'm
job.
so proud of you.
So proud of you.
Don't expect me to run out and buy a bunch more. But
might say.
Jason Massendrum is going to walk us through some samples that he sent us to explore terroir.
Oh, is he with us tonight?
Oh,
I
maybe we
think
should bring
he's
him
back there. But wait a minute. I want to see who we got on here. We got some people joining. Let's at least say hi to our folks.
All right. Let me scroll up here real quick here.
As we're doing that, we can talk about what's in front of us before we bring Jason on. So, is
Trooper Henry.
The troop?
He's on. He's not working. Or is he?
I don't know if there's something with this pitiful internet they got here in the Gulf of Mexico.
He's out.
I think he's on.
He's on
the
the
rig. It's good to see you, Trooper. Hope you're doing well, brother.
I see 86, and Zach is in there. Ahoy, mate.
Ahoy,
Everett. Right? You know he's sailing.
Yeah.
Oh, Whiskey Central is
Whiskey
here.
Central.
Bob
Cheers to you. And Bob, I had a chat with Bob this week. He texted me and said, are we not friends anymore? So I had to call him.
Well, hey, I talked to KB this week, too, so that's fine.
Good for you.
Good.
Stephen Rogers, good evening to you. We saw Justin on the pre-show as well as George.
Something for dummies. You're right. We don't know exactly
That's
what
pretty
we're doing
good,
here.
George.
I don't know how I feel about that. But cheers.
I got to pour something for my cheers.
Let me back you guys up. We started off a little warm-up. We had a warm-up in our pre-show. We all three had the turkey rare breed.
Yep.
Really like that. That's the bottle I just bought. Then Andrew had brought over a bottle of Buffalo Trace as well. So I had a wee nip of that right before the show came on. And boy, it just got its ass kicked by rare breed.
It did.
I would disagree. I'd say it's different. It's very different. There's some chocolate notes in the Buffalo Trace that I wasn't getting the rare breed. You know.
Yeah, actually, let me pour this one.
Yeah, so I put this little bit of Scotch in my glass before we dive into the deep end here.
Freshen the palate.
Freshen my palate. Give me back to base here, center me. This is Ushki, right?
Yeah, this is actually a Glentalkers. Ushki is the independent bottler, and they've got a first fill bourbon barrel, 11-year-old, 57.5% ABV.
It's different. Everybody likes talkers, but I love the actual bottle. I mean, it's a glass bottle with a glass cork. I mean, so it's really cool. But so
first of all, cheers.
Yes,
cheers. With something in the glass.
Happy Thursday.
Happy Thursday. Who's thirsty? We're thirsty.
We're thirsty. Oh, wait a minute. We got another one to do.
Greg Lewis is back. What?
No, yeah. Go ahead.
Time out.
I think we need to take time out and wish Everwind.
Ahoy.
Ahoy, mate. Happy birthday to you. Fair winds.
Fair winds. Cheers.
Cheers, my brother.
This is pretty good.
I like Justin. Buffalo Trace is $23 a bottle for a reason. Which is true. Fair point.
School. Jeremy said school.
Guys, we got stuff to get through.
Yeah,
we need to bring the expert in to tell us what's going on.
So,
welcome back to the show, our good friend, the man, the myth, the legend. Jason.
Look at that guy.
Look at that.
Look at that. Oh, hey!
Straight from the bottom.
Right.
I like it.
That's awesome.
What's up, dummies?
Hello. Welcome back.
How are we doing, boys?
Good. How are you doing?
Doing great. Excited to hang with you guys tonight for another little walk across the terroir of bourbon here. So
yeah, before we really dive into it, I'm looking at all the samples you sent us, and man, I feel like we need to write you a check, dude. This is getting out of hand.
Good.
You've gone above and beyond, but I'm really interested in what you've done for us here, because honestly, the first time we met was really an eye-opening experience, and the variety that you walked us through was amazing. Is amazing. It was really different. And it was eye-opening, and I wouldn't say there was any of them that I was just flat out, I can't drink this. Obviously, some stood out more than others. Heck, I even bought a bottle of one of them.
Well, I want to say the fact that you went out and bought a bottle of rare breed. So I'm a very big Wild Turkey fan. The fact that not only was that your favorite, that you actually went and bought a bottle, that makes me very, very happy. So cheers.
He's writing it in his journal, extroverting one.
Right? I actually we did a blind sampling through that, and I actually threw in Booker's and something else. I can't remember now. And Booker's came in second, by the way, for myself, and I think it was you. But the rare breed, I didn't know what it was. I got coffee. I think you mentioned coffee on that one as well.
Yes, some of the blends of rare breed. Now they release different blends throughout, every few months you'll see a different release, a different blend. Sometimes they'll put older stuff in it rather than the regular particular blend. So I've gotten a little bit of coffee and some rare breed as well. So yeah,
it was delicious. I enjoyed it. So
well, it was fun and eye-opening. Now, what you've done on this lineup is just as remarkable to me, because not only did you send us all of these samples were sent to us by you, but there's thought behind them. You didn't just throw 6 samples out and say, hey, we're going to talk about terroir, which we need to define that for those that don't know what that is before we really dive into this. But you actually put some serious thought into this, and it's going to be a really good experiment on terroir. And we'll talk about...
Yeah, so we talk about terroir in Scotch a lot, and for whatever reason, it tends to come up more in Scotch. The word terroir, when we talk about flavor profiles across Scotland into Islay, what you get, what you don't get, the differences. We kind of brought up the example of, you look at Bruichladdich, how they kind of release different types of barleys across Scotland and what they use to release their single malts, anything from what you get at Speyside to Highland to Islay to the coastal barleys. And, a lot of bourbon drinkers, that don't have a lot of experience with Scotch, if they've had an Ardbeg or if they've had a Lefroy or something like that, they'll say that all Scotch tastes like smoky, ashtray Band-Aid.
All the time.
Never heard that.
Yeah, and on the flip side of that, a lot of Scotch drinkers that maybe have dabbled in bourbon will say that all bourbon tastes the same. So So to me, this is kind of like my love letter to bourbon for you guys. This is
we should have like thumbnail love letter.
Yeah.
Like a heart, do the heart thing.
So you guys, so what you guys have in front of you is kind of a little bit of a taste across the country of different bourbons that have, and these are all grain to glass distilleries, newer distilleries. Some have been around a little bit longer than others, but you'll have a taste of what different states have when they're sourcing their own grains from that specific state and making their own distillate, bottling, aging, all within that state. You get some really unique flavor profiles across the country. Yeah. And I think American whiskey in general, when it talks about bourbon, when you talk about rye, whatever it may be, there's so many different flavor profiles out there. So I wanted you guys to kind of taste that.
So TV timeout. We got to back up. There's a lot that I want to dive into before I got to finish this anyway. So first of all, let's define terroir just for those. So you mentioned it's used in the Scotch world. It's really stems more from the wine industry.
It does. So with wine, you've got a much broader flavor. If it's on a dry slope, then the vines have a harder time, so they tend to create a sweeter grape or those kind of things.
So the use of the word terroir, as we're doing it, is really defining different geographical areas, right? So is this whiskey from Colorado going to taste different from that whiskey in Texas or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And so I understand that, and that happens in Scotland quite a bit, in the Scotch industry as well. I'll say that in our experience over the last 6 years, I think it's become less of an impact because of the way sourcing is done nowadays. Companies will source materials, even though they distill it in one location, they source one particular material out in that mash bill from a far different area, so it's hard to say there's a terroir. People have brought that up. Do Scotch regions even matter, right? How many times have you seen that article? But so in today's example, what you've presented us, though, these are all from specific states in that boundary. The only thing that I can say that still throws it off a little bit for me before we taste any is the mash bill in bourbon seems to be so much more variety. There's so much more wiggle room in the mash bill. And so maybe that's what's deciding what we're tasting as opposed to actual terroir. So it'd be interesting to see if we can actually see a difference.
Would you say, Jason, that the terroir versus the mash bill is a big, does the environment really lend that much into the flavoring of the bourbon?
Absolutely. We'll go through some of those examples here in front of you. I think in some terms, depending on the state, so we have a bourbons in front of you that are from Las Vegas and that are also from Texas, 2 states that probably nobody ever thought anybody should be making bourbon in those damn states.
No kidding.
So we have 2 really unique examples from there that you guys will get to try. And then in contrast to that, I also sent you some, being you guys like that, you like your malts, you like your single malts. We have some high malt mash bills that also have been introduced to bourbon, and also one distillery in there that I think you guys will very much appreciate because of what they do with their malt. And we'll talk about that a little bit as we go through. So one more thing that I want you to clarify for viewers that may be watching that don't know. These are all bourbons. Yep. The fallacy that they all came from Kentucky or had to be distilled in that county in Kentucky, that's a myth. That's all bullshit. If somebody tells you bourbon cannot be, now there are still some of the old hats that will say, the only bourbon that's worth drinking is from Kentucky.
Okay, fair enough.
There's going to be that group of folks, but the notion that bourbon can only be made in Kentucky is a complete fallacy.
Right.
Yeah. Now it's not so.
That's what I wanted to clarify. I didn't want anybody to watch this video and be like, "Those aren't bourbons. That one's from Colorado." It's still a bourbon. So it meets the definition.
2 seconds. What defines a bourbon? Not Kentucky bourbon.
Recap
not Kentucky
from
straight
our first
bourbon.
video.
Yeah, let's say a quick recap of what would be.
Yeah. So quick recap. Again, you go through the ABCs of bourbon. A, it's got to be made in America. B, the barrel, it's got to be a brand new American oak. It's got to just be a charred oak container, brand new. Can't be a used barrel in any sort of the way there. C, it's got to be made at least 51% corn. Has to be in the mash bill. You can go all the way up to 88% corn, but you can't drop below 51%. Yep. So if it's 50% corn, you can't call it bourbon. It's got to be at least 51% of that mash bill. D is your distillation. It can't be distilled above 160 proof. E is your entry proof. It can't go in the barrel any higher than 125 proof. And then you have so that's E, and then there's F. Then it's got to go in the bottle. It's got to be filled. It can't be any lower than 80 proof. So those are your main rules. Now there's some wiggle room within there. A lot of people are going in the barrel at a much lower entry proof because you're adding some water beforehand before it goes into the barrel. This way you're breaking down more of those sweet flavors. The lignin layer, it gets in deep dives into the lignin layers of the barrel. You're pulling out all those great, the vanillin, and it kind of breaks down those sugars a little bit easier if you water it down ahead of time rather than after the fact. So
right. And one big difference since we are a Scotch channel in the bourbon world and here in the States, you put something in a barrel, it's going to gain ABV. It's going to go from 100. You barreled it at 100 proof. By the time you bottle it, it might be 110. But it's gaining ABV as opposed to Scotland. You barrel something and over the age, it's dropping. And at some point in time, you're like, uh-oh, it's too low. We got to bottle this or we lose it type of thing, right?
Yeah. Generally, for the most part, bourbon will gain will gain proof as it ages, just because the hotter temperatures, You're going to evaporate more of the water in the barrel, so it's going to go up in proof. Sometimes you will get a different climate as it goes along the years, where some more colder temperatures will go in there, and then you'll actually build up more water. There'll be less evaporation, and the proof could go down. So that's kind of the beauty of whiskey. You put it in the barrel and you just wait to see what happens. So
see, it's going to be interesting because when you talk about terroir and Scotch, Scotland's pretty small. The climate's pretty close.
Yeah, it's pretty consistent.
Yes, there's coastal and non-coastal, but we asked somebody, we were making a comment that, maybe it's warmer in the south where so you get a little more of the barrel influence because it's warmer in the south, and everybody we talk to says it's no warmer in the south of Scotland than it is in Scotland. It's cold everywhere.
But it's definitely
cold
warmer in Vegas than it is in
Colorado. So
Colorado.
in the United States, you've got Tennessee, you've got Kentucky, you've got New York, you've got Colorado. I mean, there's a major difference in climate in those.
I would imagine that's probably a big portion of what we're going to talk about is the temperature.
Absolutely, and that's where we're going to talk through a little bit, because a whiskey that's aged in Texas, you can age a whiskey in Texas for 2 years, and you can get just as much flavor and barrel influence from a bourbon in Kentucky that's 5 or 6 years old. Same thing in Las Vegas. You can get a lot of different, the heat that kind of envelops that barrel. You get a lot faster maturation than you would from going through the Four Seasons in Kentucky. But there's distilleries in states like that have just done it better than others.
Yes.
And that's what we're going to talk a little bit about tonight. So
it's also a balance of the angel shares versus when hotter environment versus less, right? I mean, you probably give more away than by doing it, but you're aging faster.
Yeah.
Right? Does that kind of make sense?
That's exactly it. When you're talking about those hotter climates, that's kind of the line they have to walk. Yeah.
Okay. Yep. So what do you want to start with tonight?
So Drew wants. I looked over and he looked a little bit bored. His glasses.
What I would like you guys to do first is take the samples that I sent you earlier. I sent you a Calumet 15 in there.
Okay.
So I just want you guys to palate a Kentucky bourbon.
Okay.
Just to kind of wet your whistle a little bit, and then kind of get that flavor profile. Then we're gonna start dive. Yeah, this is your baseline, and then we're gonna dive into some of the craft distilleries, so you can kind of taste those differences.
All right, so we're pouring about a quarter-ounce pour of this Calumet.
Calumet 15.
So what's the story with this? Yeah,
tell me what the hell I'm drinking here.
So Calumet 15 is a sourced bourbon. It's a brand that they source from. So basically, it's Barton Distillery. I don't know if you guys have ever seen the bottles from 1792 bourbon.
Yep.
So this is that brand. So Calumet is a different brand that they're sourcing different barrels from distilleries. They mainly use Barton right now. But a lot of people are sourcing from Barton because they do have a ton of barrels available and stuff with great age. So they source some 15-year-old barrels. They filled these bottles for Calumet. It's all Kentucky bourbon. But I wanted to give you guys a representative of something that has some age to it. I get a ton of cherry on that Calumet 15, like medicinal cherry almost.
Thank you for saying it, because I didn't want to be the one that said it and everybody makes fun of this guy.
I got Twinkie in the nose.
I literally was going, man, there is some red fruit in there. I get something, but I didn't want to say it, and everybody's like, man, he really is a Scotch dummy, because he.
I was getting some astringency. It's almost like cherry cough syrup. To that, it's not as bad as cough syrup by any means, but I'm getting a little bit on the edge there.
The nose was lighter. I didn't get the cherry, more maybe a hint of it, more of the bourbon flavor, but it was all creamy vanilla sponge like Twinkie on the nose. But that palate, it's so much like you said, cherry. Almost.
Yeah, I get like Luden's cough drop.
Yes, that's exactly.
It's a mentholated.
Totally what that is.
But you get your typical caramels, vanillas. It's a nice age. So this is just a good bourbon.
It's 105 proof. So how much water you want?
Give it to me. That's good.
Yep. Water definitely opens it up a little bit. You'll start getting a little bit more of the pastry notes and the vanilla caramel coming out.
I'm not getting much of the vanilla and like caramels in it right now, but that's okay. We're just getting a baseline.
Calumet 15.
Wet in the palate.
15 is the age.
What's the price too?
Price for that bottle is around $130, which is actually a nice price for a 15-year-old bourbon in this market. Yep.
What's NCF?
Non-chill filtered.
Filtered. Okay.
See, that's
You put it in quotes, and it caught me off guard. Like I'm like, wow, that stands for something else. Okay.
That's much better with water. It definitely rounds it off. It definitely the caramels and softness. And
I totally agree. A couple drops of water does a body good on that bone.
I think water killed that cherry note on the nose to me.
No, but it brought all the warmth up. It's really
the nose was just a little lighter, still Twinkie creamy to me, but the palate was definitely more approachable. Not nearly as harsh as that Luden's cough drop.
Yeah.
It was
for sure.
More balanced. That caramel started coming through more on the
I like
water.
the Luden's cough drop. Taking it neat.
All right, he likes it neat. All right, good.
So that's our
with water. With water, it tasted like a bourbon.
Shit.
Oh no!
Oh my gosh, the educated palate.
Oh my gosh,
Mark. All right.
That's our
so now that you guys have kind of a Kentucky bourbon all set on your palate, now I think the first bourbon I want to take you to when we're talking about a craft distillery here is let's head to let's go to Texas actually. So the first one that's all the way on your right is the Ironroot.
Ironroot.
So there's I know we don't even have to go to our chat to say Zach Andrews.
Let me just see if Zach's on there.
Oh my gosh, it's Ironroot. Yeah.
There's our Texas boy.
So just remind me, read me that sample. What's in there? I believe it's
Ironroot Tri-Barrel, 127.6 proof, 63.8% ABV.
Yes.
Ironroot Tri-Barrel barrel.
You pass her back. As a Young Guns quote. My bad.
There you go. Here's one for you, Matt.
No, that is totally different.
What do you think about that, Jason?
No,
Puerto Rico, Virgin Islands, and Guam make bourbon. I think Puerto Rico can, but they just don't.
It's an American territory.
Because it wouldn't work.
So it's an American territory.
Yeah. So, I haven't seen any bourbons coming out of Puerto Rico.
But on the bourbons, on the rum side, they're killing it. No, I don't know if that's even true, but I would think.
Well, this one has more of a lumberyard smell.
A lumberyard, so like sawdust, wood.
To me, right now, first nose, absolutely.
So Ironroot obviously is in they're in Denison, Texas. They're very well known for using different types of varietals of corn. So they use a lot of heirloom grains. They're using purple corn. They're using bloody butcher corn, flint corn, yellow dent corn, rye, all to make up their mash bills. And then on top of that, you're looking at very, very, very intense heat in Texas. So their stuff usually can be around 2 to 4 years old. Ironroot is probably one of the better representations of a Texas whiskey. Sometimes, I've had some Texas whiskeys that the oak and the funk is so intense that it just really overtakes the whiskey. I feel like Ironroot has kind of been able to figure out where to kind of stop, get that aging process to a point where you not only get some of the little bit of the Texas funk to it, which was alluded to completely when you saw that sawdust, because it does. It has kind of like an old-timey, like dusty, like bar floor note to it.
100%.
Boy, yeah, nothing like a bar floor. That's a taste I'm after.
Yeah.
Tell me about this age. There's not an age on the sticker. Not an age.
Yeah. So the ages of that specific tri-barrel is a blend of 3 different barrels with 3 different ages. So you're looking at, I think, 3, 4, and 6-year-old bourbons from Texas.
I get a lot of really deep sugar, maybe on the molasses side.
The flavor on that is way better than the nose.
Yes, absolutely. I totally agree. The flavors, Texas whiskeys tend to be very dense, very, very rich. They're aging. You got to remember, Kentucky, some bourbons in Kentucky will actually use a heat cycled warehouse. So Old Forester and Woodford Reserve are very known for using a heat cycled warehouse. So you're actually, what you would maybe think is a 4-year-old bourbon aged, you would actually get in reality, it's a 4-year-old bourbon, but the flavor, you might get more of a 6-year-old type profile from it because of that heat cycled warehouses. You're not getting that in Texas whiskey. They don't need that because there's so much heat already. So you're getting a bunch of just very instant, deep, rich flavors.
Yeah.
It's kind of like covered by like this Texas funk candy shell.
So question then, would that, the environment has to really be less of, well, I guess it's both, because I mean, for me, I'm getting wood influence through that sawdust more, and it is deep and fruity and flavorful, like syrupy.
Yeah, and
in that note, it reminds me about Balcones.
It does,
Well,
but then how does the terroir affect this then? Because is the heat giving it? I mean, is the mash more important here? Is that where we're getting the deep richness from?
I think what Ironroot does is mixing those different types of heirloom corns, which not a lot of people do. Usually when you're thinking about a Kentucky bourbon, they're using GMO yellow corn. On the Ironroot side, I think you're getting some different depth of flavor because they're using purple corn, bloody butcher corn. A lot of those corns have a much like starchier type of content in the corn rather than the sugar. So what you're doing is you're getting more like nuttiness and you're getting more depth of flavor. So I think it's a little bit of both. You're not only getting the richness from the different types of corns, but you're also getting that intense heat and the aging as well.
Interesting.
So while Drew, hold on a second. While Drew pulls up this question, I was getting a deep, it's almost like you get in a really deep aged whiskey or Scotch, where you get in the bitterness and the tannins and things out of the wood that I don't often get in a lighter bourbon. There's more depth. There's more deep chocolate and bitterness, black tea kind of thing.
There is.
That I was getting in this that I don't normally get.
So a couple of things to address the comments here. Stuff for work. I'm not going to disagree with you, but I think terroir is not just about a geographical location, but it's about everything that has to do with that geographical location. It's the soil content. It's the slope of the earth that it's on and how much water is getting into the ground. It's
temperature
the heat,
is part
it's
of
the
it.
amount of sun. It's the whole picture. But I can definitely see where someone just said also what they think is Stuff for Work said maybe distillery character. And maybe that is some of it, because I definitely see similarities in this with the other Texas whiskey that I'm familiar with.
Yeah.
But to really get a sense of terroir, you have to have spent time with multiple distilleries or bottles from that geographical area to say.
Yeah, all of these corns that they're getting, the heirloom corns they're all a source from North Texas. So there's that terroir part of it, which I think plays into that dusty character, the nuttiness to it, and the depth of flavor, but also combined with that intense Texas heat. So I think it's a little bit of both.
Right. Yeah. So I honestly, on the nose, I get that deep, sweet, and almost molasses. With water on the nose, I do get a little bit of your nuttiness in there. But on the palate is where that sawdust wood comes in. I'm like, oh, I didn't smell it. So the fact that it hit me on the palate, I was like, damn, that just came out of left field.
That's a tasty glass.
This is like strawberry shortcake with syrup and some wood chips on top of it. I mean,
And there you go.
know what? And Drew, that's kind of a perfect description of it, because when I tasted that one for the first time, I said, how can something be so oaky and so sweet, fruity at the same time?
It's amazing. It tastes like you're licking the the cask right now, the barrel, like it's so fresh wood taste. You know, it's
exactly
crazy.
Yep. So one thing about terroir and whiskey is I think is different than terroir and wine.
Sure.
Because terroir and wine, the fruit, whether it be grain or grapes, is more important because you're taking that fruit juice and aging it. Whereas with whiskey, you're distilling it. So by definition, you're removing the largest percentage of what you're pulling out of there.
Sure.
So most of the flavor from the grain, admittedly, is lost. So I would argue that terroir may be more important in the barreling process. So the age, in this case, the heat, than in the grain process. Now, there's subtleties. I would say different grains. So if you're using the purple corn and things like that, now is Texas purple corn different than Iowa purple corn? That would be really, really hard to tell.
But to argue, not argue, but to add to your point, we'll say, let's use the Scotch example. Terroir, when it comes to regions, is very heavily referred to when peating something. The peat from a specific area definitely influences the flavor different from the peat of another area. Peat up in the Northern Highlands and Orkney is so heathery, where you get down in the island.
I would say that's an additive.
But take that analogy and get it where he's spinning us right now. I'm starting to see what he's doing. So we just had our Highland right now, beginning with the Kentucky bourbon. We just had a little bit of funky here in Campbelltown, basically.
Yeah.
Right.
We're getting ready to get into some other things, maybe our region focus here, which is interesting because, to your point of terroir, this is really kind of the same thing. That's why I love about Scotland so much, is that every region, I mean, you can start to kind of formulate a taste for that region for the most part. And so I'm really interested in see where we're going to next year. I really like the Ironroot. It's delicious.
Yeah, it is delicious. I would agree.
So you guys are a fan of the Ironroot?
I am.
Absolutely.
I am really. I really enjoyed it. It's good.
Oh, that's good. Okay, I'm happy about that. That's
I'm 50-50.
I like my heavy, peated whiskey. So that's.
If it was more wood chippy, because I've had some of those before, I would like it. But it's a good balance. It's actually
chippy.
I think it's. That's what I'm struggling with.
Honestly, overall, Texas as a whole has put out. I feel like it's their own category of whiskey. When you guys are tasting there, you have across the state. I mean, people are, there's some distilleries doing some absolutely amazing stuff with peated Texas whiskey. I mean, you take that funk and you add some smoke to it. It's unbelievable. So there's some of that going on as well.
Very good.
So let me just say, what you just said is crazy because you just got a super chat on your channel that you're not even, publishing from right now from Zach Andrews.
Yeah, he's super chatting you, and you're not even online.
You're not even online. You just got a super chat because of what you just said.
It's queued up.
Next time you come online, it'll super chat.
Yeah, that's good. Zach is the man. Love Zach.
He is the man. All right, where are we going next, bud?
All right, so next, let's go to let's head to. You know what? I want to get into something now that you've had that. I want to get into a more of a base bourbon in a different area. So let's head over to Las Vegas, and I want you to get some Frey Ranch in you.
Frey Ranch.
So similar heat, would you say?
Similar temperature zone.
Similar heat. Now the thing with Frey Ranch is you're looking at this is so you have a barrel pick, I believe. Now this is about a little over 4 years old. They use non-GMO corn, a winter cereal rye, which is a very different type of rye grain that they're using. They also use a winter wheat, and they're also using 2-row barley in their mash bill. So we're looking at a 4-grain mash bill here, all from Frey Ranch, that's what it is. I mean, Frey Ranch is a ranch. And they've been growing their own. They've been growing their own grains and their own. They started in about 2001. They began distilling in 2006. I mean, Nevada just really recently enacted distilling laws in Nevada, which is really interesting. But every part of the whiskey making process for Frey Ranch is done on it. I think it's a 2,500 acre ranch. Crops are grown, malted, distilled, aged, bottled, all on site. They make absinthe, they make vodka, they make gin, and they make this bourbon that's pretty sought after right now. It's a very extremely award winning.
This bourbon, okay.
So you said barley. Is it malted barley?
Yes. Yep. 2-row malted barley.
Do you know what the percentage is in the mash bill of the barley?
Let me see if I can find the mash.
And two-row malted barley, two-row barley is typically a higher protein content, right?
Right.
Correct.
That's more often used for animal grain. So I'll read from the barrel or from the bottle here. Frey Ranch straight bourbon whiskey, single barrel, selected by Seelbach, barrel 437, bottle 166, 63.74%.
Hot.
ABV 127.48. Yeah, proof. So high ABV, essentially barrel strength, cask strength, single barrel.
I love the comments too, man. I think we've basically dubbed you the king of bourbon YouTube. By the way,
kidding.
I mean,
Yeah,
so
you're
you
right.
have,
Oh my
you have
God.
the seal of everyone on our channel right now.
So
No, I mean, I appreciate. Listen, you guys know, just like you with Scott, I'm very passionate about this. So I'm kind of the big nerd about this. So
I gotta tell you, man,
appreciate it.
63.74% is numbing. I mean, literally, and I love high proof whiskey, right? But man, that's just, it's heavy, it's thick, and then when that ABV hits you, your mouth is like, all right, Dennis, get the filling done.
I want to ask you a question based on 6 months ago, before we started even talking about we should start doing bourbon a little bit. So far, do these taste like bourbon to you? I will say not as much as I thought.
Not as much as I thought.
no, because our history was with cheap bourbons.
Right.
These are like if you put this in front of me, I would have to think about it for a little bit. A couple of these, like I think it's a bourbon.
So this is completely different. So I'm getting for some reason, drywall paste comes in my head as kind of the base.
You're not
flavor.
supposed to lick that.
Oh, I know,
Well,
but,
sponge.
when you smell it, it's more earthy. It's more like gypsum. It's chalk. That it's a much more. It's a completely different flavor than the Ironroot. Completely.
yeah, it's a much more an earthy, raw, grainy. That's really the type of flavor profile you're going to get here.
Almost no barrel. You taste the grains. You taste the wheat. You taste the
This is amazing. I got funk above funk above funk. This is really cool.
funk. I'm not getting that one.
Yeah, this
Looks like I'm taking some of his Scotch bottles home with me.
Yeah, this is really good. I mean, this
You've
is the first
sold him.
impression. That funkiness of whatever that is awesome.
If you're saying that now, I cannot wait until we get to the last bottle that I have in store for you. So,
all right. So this is
Wow.
local grain, local distilling, local aging in a hot climate though. So is this young?
in a hot climate, yeah, we're looking at just over 4 years old for these.
It's over 4 years old. Okay.
This one's probably the most out of center from bourbon for me.
Thanks, Zach. Thank you.
Right.
We
So
know.
if bourbon was a swim lane, this one's outside of that swim lane now.
It
It's
tastes
getting
like
a foul for not being in its own lane.
The weird thing is, this doesn't taste like it's well aged. I mean, it tastes like a young whiskey. It tastes like almost new make. I mean, there's a lot of, because of the grain flavor that's still in it. It tastes like the barrel hasn't done its job.
Kind of risque, wild and crazy whiskey.
Which one is it?
This one, the Frey.
Yeah, a lot of folks will say that for a 4-year-old bourbon out of Las Vegas, this is incredibly rich and complex. Normally at a Kentucky, when you see a 4-year-old bourbon, it's usually very light in color. This has all the things that we want. We're talking about non-chill filtration. We're talking, grain to glass, and you're gonna taste the grain a little bit here, but it's the barrel strength in particular is just phenomenal stuff. Here's a close-up of the bottle. And it's got this, well, let me turn that there. There you go. There's a close-up with the camera focus in.
Let me make you hold on a
I'm
second.
gonna solo you.
Oh well.
And the topper on this thing. Look at that thing. That's like a hard metal topper. That thing will kill a man.
Honestly, to me, this is interesting. And I'm not saying good or bad. I'm not saying I like it. I'm not saying I dislike it. To me, this is something I have to spend time with. There's a lot going on.
So I expected that from you guys because you have already been tasting some very well-aged bourbons, from Kentucky. Even the Ironroot coming off that one, which is the reason why I wanted you to go to this one after the Ironroot, because even though Ironroot is still considered a very young bourbon, the heat accelerates that maturation and makes it seem older than it is. This one, now we're in Vegas. This is a little bit more in the grain profile, but you're seeing now what a bourbon aged in Vegas from grain to glass will taste like in comparison to the others.
So I would say the barrel is not as important for this one. I don't know what they're doing with the barrel. I don't know if they're keeping it in climate-controlled warehouses or something, because I would expect in Nevada heat, you'd have oak all over this, but I'm not getting oak all over this.
Yeah, and that's what was interesting to me when I first had Frey Ranch, because you would think that you would get more of a typical flavor profile like you would from Texas.
Yeah,
but that's not the case. I think the lower humidity in Vegas, I think, plays a big part in it as well. You're not getting the humidity and the evaporation that you're getting in Texas compared to Vegas.
I think this is a delicious dram. I'm really interested because it is complex. It's different. It stretches the boundaries what I think a bourbon is at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I think that I'll stand with on the ground that I said it's funky, which is cool, but does have a kind of a almost semi-off-putting aftertaste, mineral or some kind of metallic.
It's got a slight bitterness on the back end.
Yeah.
I will say this is not my wheelhouse kind of a whiskey, because it doesn't have rich, powerful fruits and things like that in it. Which again, we're in a whole different flavor genre here, and definitely this is, in my opinion, grain forward, barrel light, and it tastes young. Well, it tastes young from a flavor, but the heat is, I would say the heat is fairly well taken.
Would you say you're not a fan?
This is not my favorite. I don't know how I'd buy this bottle.
It's a thing that I didn't send these to you guys thinking, oh my God, they're gonna love all of these.
Exactly.
Totally. It's really just kind of a vertical of the different flavor profiles we're gonna talk through tonight. So
I understand that completely.
I think this one's complex. I get different nose profiles on it when I smell it differently, whether I'm smelling it from one nostril or getting in. And honestly, it's funny. I actually got one. I went really deep and kind of trying to open things up. And have you ever been to a dairy? Are you familiar with what they feed dairy cows? The silage. Have you ever smelled silage? I got that for a second, and I was like, "What the hell?"
Understand.
And so I backed up, and I'm like, "Is that what I really got?" And I went back in the same way. Yes, but if I take it away and I come in light, I don't get that at all. I really got to get down in there, and I'm like, "Oh man, it just smells like something
green and
dairy cows are going to eat."
Green.
The green. It tastes green or it smells green.
Yeah, there's definitely a greeniness to it, and I think depending on what you like, your palate, people can accept it, than other people. So including that including that Frey Ranch single barrel that I've had that one and a few others that have really been standouts as far as, because I think if you guys are a little bit off put by that one, the regular offerings, the non-barrel proof, I think have a little bit even more of a green and graininess to it. But at the same time, you could see the potential there. As this stuff gets older, I think it's going to get better and better and better.
I would agree with you on that.
I like it. Real quick shout out to our good friend Alan Ward. Good to see you here, sir.
Hey, Alan.
Mr. Bourbon guy. He knows everything about bourbon as well.
Mr. Four Roses right there.
The Castle Key and all that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Also, a quick super chat here, Andrew.
From Damien.
From Damien says, you should have snuck in a bottle of Abelard Abinad to just throw us off to see if we caught it.
That is Abelard Abinad is definitely a bourbon lover Scotch, because it's high potent, it's high proof, it's potent, it's sweet. I love that stuff.
It'll punch you in the face, that's for sure.
It will.
It will
You know,
punch you.
Sean complains that gives him a headache. For some
Yeah, it
reason,
does.
Avalor, Avanade, whatever, there's an ingredient in there that he must have an allergic reaction. It gives him a headache every time.
All right, so we
All right,
went to Kentucky, we went to Vegas, went to Texas. Where are we going next?
All right, you guys ready to get into some high malt?
Oh,
Sure.
yeah.
Boom.
I
Now
love
you're
malt.
calling my number.
All right, so first high malt I want you to try. Let's go with the Leopold brothers that I sent you.
So we got Leopold Brothers Distillery, 100 proof from Colorado.
That's right.
All right, so we went from heat to
Cold, man.
To high altitude.
Mountain.
Yeah, we're looking at a high altitude maturation. We're also looking at a very, very unique mash bill. So right now we're looking at 64% corn, 17% malted barley,
That's what I'm talking about.
and 15% a Bruzy Heritage Rye. Now, a Bruzy Heritage Rye is an old school rye that they used back pre-Prohibition. It's actually an Italian rye grain. So
why did I get this visual when you said old school bruisey, and I see some woman with a babushka on and a long skirt down to her ankles getting ready to whip me? That's what I felt like. He's like some bruise. I'm like, dang, man,
Yeah.
bruise. This just sounds like it's gonna whip me out, dude.
I would say the Ironroot's affecting you pretty fast.
So Leopold Brothers is pretty serious in what they do, and this is one of the distillery. This is the distillery I wanted to tell you guys that you'll appreciate this. So they use open fermentation in wooden tanks. So they want all the funkiness, all the different outliers in the air to affect the yeast and drive that funk into their whiskey. They do pot distilled. It's unfiltered. This is I think it's a little over 4 years old, and what you guys will appreciate, these guys are very, very serious about their malt. They actually have, I think, one of the only malting floors in the United States. So these guys are going old school. They're going monkey shoulder style, boys.
This smells. My first impression is you just took me to a 4-H fair. I'm in the freaking goat barn.
Dude, this smells like my grandfather's corn bin.
It smells like hay.
Yeah, on the farm.
Absolutely.
They were this close, but they put too much damn rye in it. I don't want the rye to overpower my malt.
Yep. So these guys have a malting floor. They have a traditional malting floor that they go in. They lay the malt down on the ground. They let it germinate. They're flipping it over.
It's like chewing on a piece of rye.
See, the rye overpowered the malt. I was so excited. I'm like, oh, here comes my malt love. Gonna get you on this.
I feel like I'm eating hay.
It is. It's very hay, isn't it?
It really is. Like,
Yep.
I mean, I'm being negative. I'm just
Put
trying.
some water-
I'm giving you
put
my
some water
first
on it.
impression.
Put some water on it.
It tastes like hay. I mean, and that's so. I'm not getting malt at all.
Oh, it
Really.
does taste like hay.
I
Dude, you're not kidding.
the rye is just too
hey.
strong.
I don't discount these guys are serious about their stuff, but this bottle, I have to say, it does have a bit of hate. No,
Oh no, I agree. It's very, very hay, and it's like hay. It's like someone put some honey on some hay and then threw it in my mouth.
That's exactly it. You nailed it. Honey hay, sweet hay.
Oh, the water helps though.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about that.
Water bringing up the sweetness.
True, so I don't know about that.
All right, so that's the beauty of this, because I never would have bought this, and we never would have been exposed to this.
This is Colorado.
Yep.
It
So
is.
this is a collar. Now, if you guys have had Stranahan's, that's a good American single malt.
I love Stranahan's, but that's an American single malt, right? It's not a bourbon.
That's an American single malt, not a bourbon. So these guys, Leopold Brothers, they're sourcing everything right out of Colorado. They're doing the malting floor. They got that Abruzzi rye, which is definitely a harsher, flavorful rye. And then you have the they have their barley that they're malting on their own on their malting floors. So it's not. Now I'll tell you the truth. This is a bourbon I'm actually not that crazy about. But I wanted to give you guys a representation of what's going on around the country and how different.
You know what they need? They need some heat.
Hey, you know what? if you want us to do the same thing and send you a sample, a range of these samples, one of them's going to be White Walker.
Dude, I reviewed that shit. I don't want any more of that crap.
I would say these guys missed it on this one. I mean,
from my perspective, you're being analytical based on what you like in Scotch.
Right, absolutely. I would never buy
you put yourself on different. They did what they probably said they were doing. I just don't appreciate it, and I think, to me, if you are a person that really loves the countryside and you want to taste that type of stuff in your drinks, this is the bottle for you. I will say the water definitely helps it. It's definitely more sweeter and less of the hay, but it's a strong outdoor hay taste.
So what are we talking about though? Is that
I totally agree. I think it's very, actually, for me, I think it's very malt heavy, very hay, very honey, and there's not much else other than that.
So what brings that though? How is that? Is that truly the terroir?
For sure. I think it's the terroir. I think it's the fact that they're growing their own barley. They're doing their distillation is all pot distilled, so it is creamy for what it is. But I think the yeast that they use has a part to play in as well. They're letting all the kind of the free radicals out in the air. They're kind of they let that stuff kind of hit the yeast and make an effect on their whiskey. I had Todd Leopold on the channel recently, and he kind of talked through what they do.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Love you, Todd.
We love you, Todd. But
sorry,
love you, Todd.
I appreciate your
not this one.
Are there other distilleries doing this in Colorado that's very similar in that taste, or is this pretty much the mash combo and malt combo of what they're doing?
So far from what I've tasted out of Colorado, they're the only ones using that Abruzzi Italian rye, and I think that's what's really driving.
I think you're right.
Wow. Yeah. There's a reason there's only one distillery using it.
All right.
To me, it was overpowering.
Honestly, if you go back in history, pre-Prohibition, Abruzzi rye was one of the main ryes that were used. So what Leopold Brothers is trying to do is replicate that type of flavor profile to what was being drank pre-Prohibition. Right. So it's kind of a throwback type of whiskey. It's more of a historical reference in a bottle.
Yeah, right. So to Drew's point, kudos to them. I think they probably hit the target for what they set out to do with this whiskey.
Absolutely.
Maybe it's not hitting our butt, and that's fine.
That's fine. To be fair.
I really wish there was more malt forwardness. I expected more malt forwardness, and unfortunately, the rye kind of overpowered. It is what it is. That's okay.
But it definitely doesn't taste like a normal bourbon.
Oh, hell no, it doesn't taste like a bourbon.
But that's the thing. So that it is considered. It is a bourbon. It follows the rules of bourbon, but I mean, you guys just tasted something that's completely different than the other stuff you tasted.
But this is I really enjoy what I'm going through so far, because it's eye-opening to say you can't. I mean, honestly, until you get into the weeds of doing some of this, it's so easy to generalize and say, "Oh, bourbon tastes the same." No. It really is easy because I mean, you taste the stuff that's in the liquor store.
IC80. So IC86. So Old Elk we brought up before, also in Colorado. They also have a very high malt mash bill but I don't get a lot of the flavor of the malt in their whiskeys. I think they use it really to kind of round out the rough edges for their whiskeys. So, but Old Elk is a very good. I think I have one here. I could show you guys the bottle.
You should taste it and see if it's similar. I'm
sure he's tasted it.
Let's go to the next high malt, which is completely different. We're gonna go with Chattanooga 111.
Chattanooga 111.
Chattanooga, I'm all about that. Come on, bring the malt, baby. Bring the malt.
Leanne was talking about that earlier.
So Chattanooga has a really interesting story. These guys built a distillery before it was legal to distill in Chattanooga.
Oh, nice.
When was that? Like 1525?
Actually, not that long ago. So basically, what happened was Chattanooga was a very big hub for distillation before Prohibition. Prohibition happened. All the distilleries in Chattanooga kind of went away, and then when they brought back distillation to Tennessee in kind of the 90s and the early 2000s, Chattanooga was kind of left off of that map, unfortunately. So Chattanooga Whiskey Company kind of started this movement. Would you drink Chattanooga whiskey, which was a social media type of agenda, and basically they got a bunch of people that were interested in it. They brought it to Congress, and then lo and behold, they were able to distill Chattanooga spirits back in Chattanooga, and Chattanooga Whiskey Company was the leader. Now, what they did, one of the coolest names in whiskey, the guy's name is Grant McCracken.
McCracken.
Yes, he is the master distiller. He actually came from the beer business. So with Chattanooga, what he did is he uses yellow corn, malted rye, caramel malted barley, and honey malted barley in this blend to really bring out some sweetness and to bring out some great fermentation. So
I like McCracken.
Yeah.
So I will. So yeah,
he's a good guy.
I've done some beer brewing, and those caramel malts and things, they do add more flavor to your beer for sure.
Absolutely.
They have less. They have a lower yield. Admittedly, a lower alcohol yield, but they add flavor. That's like with the Glenmorangie Signet. Where they use chocolate malt in their mash bill.
Right.
Adds a lot of coffee flavors, but very little alcohol.
Yeah, so this is so they're very transparent, which is great on the label. 7 day fermentation, 53-gallon toasted and charred oak barrels. So you're getting flavor from the different types of malt, the barrel, the toasting. It all kind of works together. And on top of that, you're looking at a batch size of about 6 to 10 barrels, and the whiskey is. Right now, we're looking at only about 3 years old for this.
Wow,
this is delicious.
So you're saying each bottling is only 3 to 6 casks?
I mean, for the 111, 6 to 10 barrels.
Shit, I'm not saying that's bad. What sucks about that to me is I really like this right now. I want a bottle of what's in my glass, not what's in a bottle on the shelf. You know what I mean? And hopefully there's not that much variation, but I get like the maltiness here. I definitely get some of those interesting characteristics. I'm interested to hear more about the fact that they're not just using malted barley, but caramel malted, honey malted. And,
it's so for me, when I smelt it for quite a bit when we were talking, and it was like steak and taters and a little bit of sweetness in the notes. It was just pleasant. It wasn't anything really robust, but the palate, man, it's really. It's rich. It's got some chocolate notes to it. It's got some caramel notes to it. It's got some wood influence, some nuttiness, almost like a candied pecan almost as well.
Yeah,
it's a very good pecan. Is a great.
Yeah, this made my top 5 go-to available bourbons for this year because I just keep going back to this thing. It's delicious.
What did you say the price point is on a bottle of this?
Thanks, Donald.
Thank you, Donald.
Thank you.
The sports with Bourbon, Obi-Wan, the greatest teacher he is. Thank you very much, Donald Renz. Thank you.
Yeah, how do we get a bottle of this? Because I want a bottle of this. This is delicious.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I should be available in Indiana, I think.
Yeah, that is really nice. That's a nice
price point where you got it.
This is about $45-$50.
Are you kidding me?
So Chattanooga 111 high malt from Tennessee.
Yep.
Wow.
It's a Tennessee whiskey, but Tennessee whiskeys are generally known to be what? George Dickel, Jack Daniels. When you think Tennessee whiskey, that's what you're thinking of.
You can process.
This is one of the few Tennessee whiskeys that are just a Tennessee bourbon, but also a high malt. So
is this terroir then?
Huh?
It's not a Tennessee whiskey per se. It's the antithesis of Tennessee whiskey.
I wouldn't say that the terroir in this is as interesting as what they do with the grain, with the malted barley.
I would agree with that. Yes.
Yeah. This is my new favorite. I'll tell you right now, this is in the Scotch world, this is Signet and Glenfiddich 15 had a baby.
That's pretty good.
I like that.
It really is.
Yeah,
now, I'm not going to lie to
those-
anybody that's watching. I do get a corn note on it. I still get my corn note. It's nowhere near overpowering. It's just there.
I mean,
a slight hint.
I mean, obviously for me to call it, I would be in a blind taste. I mean, I would probably say it's a bourbon. I can't say for sure, but I mean, it does not come across like, oh, it's a bourbon. Oh my God, it's a bourbon.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow, this is really good.
On the mid palate, it does.
Yeah,
the first palate has a lot of that roasted caramel flavor in it, the roasted malt flavor, but then it rolls into
Good though.
That's a winner. That's a winner. Right
Chicken dinner right there.
Yep.
Chicken dinner.
Yeah, that's apparently Michael Schneider in the chat is saying it's all over in Indiana. So you guys,
I'm gonna be buying some bottles for sure.
That's good.
I'll put a little close up here in the bottle. You guys can see exactly what it looks like when you're chasing.
There you go. It's
Put him front and center, man. I want to see this. Hang on.
Let me remove
go to a
this.
single.
Let me
go
remove
to
the.
singles.
Hold on just a second.
Hang on. What are you doing?
Just a second, you guys. There.
Hang
There it is.
There you go.
Chattanooga. See, I would have never bought that. I would never even touch it. I'd be like, what kind of hokey shit is this?
It's so hard to.
Good.
I mean, I'm going to start looking for those as I'm actually. Here's the thing. I'll be honest. I'm actually going to start walking in the bourbon aisle now.
Yeah. So the key
Looking.
though. So the key is you need to go to a website and say, what is this whiskey I've never heard of before? It's worth picking up?
Well, no, honestly, it's us doing what we're doing right now for us, for me personally.
Yeah.
That's why I loved about Scotch. I mean, we got to the world we're at with Scotch because we tried and went through it.
Yeah.
And I love doing this here. It's like real world
The
experience.
problem
going through
is there's a bazillion bourbons on the shelf right now.
well, thank God we got the Scotch God or Bourbon God in front of us here to really help us
That's true.
make some good picks. So
We got the
All right.
guy. All right, so that was cool. I like
So you guys, that's probably your number one tonight. Is that chat? Well, do you guys like the Chattanooga or the Ironroot a little better? What do you think?
I think that one is the best.
McCracken, baby.
That one's the best for me, but I do like Ironroot a lot.
I'm going McCracken all night.
Ironroot for me tonight. That was good. That's a close second.
I like
I like it. You say I'm going McCracken.
Don't be nasty.
Don't be nasty. McCracken is great.
All right. So what do we get next?
All right,
Cedar,
so let's head to Iowa.
Iowa.
Yep,
Really, they make bourbon in
Cedar
Iowa?
Ridge.
Cedar Ridge.
They make a lot of damn corn in Iowa. They grow a hell of a lot of it. Might as well freaking Bruce.
Hey, I grew up in Nebraska. I know. I understand Iowa.
So Iowa. I mean, Iowa is corn country. So
Oh,
why
oh,
not?
yeah.
Why not make some good ass bourbon in Iowa?
All right.
So these guys are using a 75% corn, 15% malted barley, 10% rye mash bill. So
5%.
Before we go any
corn.
further, everyone in the chat right now, please hit the like button. It really helps us on YouTube, just so you know. Hit the like button. Thank you.
Obviously, we're going to go over our hour a little bit because we still have one more to get through, but we're really digging in deep. So Bourbon, Boomer in Wisconsin.
Boomer.
Great picks tonight, Jason. Now I need to see a great Scotch collection for Jason to try.
Yes.
Yeah,
And
need to
if
take
you're
Jason.
not, I'm sure you all are, but if you're not, make sure you definitely go over and subscribe to Jason after the show because he's got the wealth of knowledge.
Yeah.
And just look what's behind him.
Yeah, he knows his stuff. Oh, wow. This has got a good nose, too.
Okay, so hang on a second.
All right. So this is more of a typical bourbon, I would say.
I disagree.
What? Drunk, dude.
I hope you're not working tomorrow.
Oh, this is
Cedar Ridge. This is grain to glass. All the distillation they do in house. They source. This is all Iowa grown grains. And I think this one is probably the biggest. This one and the next one we're going to try is probably the biggest example of terroir that we're going to have tonight because
You know what's crazy though?
it has that high corn content, but there is a big difference, I think, between this corn and then what you're tasting out of Kentucky.
yes.
Absolutely.
Yep.
First and foremost, I got to point out number one, the maturation. You have an age on this,
A little bit over 3 years.
and we're just talking new oak and no
Brand new oak, no finishing. This is brand new oak. A little bit over 3 years for this. And
that being said, the corn has got to be making a difference. This does not taste like your good old sweet corn bourbon.
This is
Well,
cinnamon.
Yeah,
Wow.
I think you're not, the barrel isn't as influential here. And I think corn is more neutral than you realize in this case. I think the barrel, the vanillas and the caramels, you don't have as much of that here. Oh, this is really nice. It's almost like sweet corn.
I picture it as like that Halloween candy corn candy.
Yes.
It's more cinnamon notes to it to me, though.
I do get a lot of cinnamon. There's some baking spices that make
a baking spice note on the tongue. Hell yeah.
Yep.
Like baking powder.
What's the ABV on this?
57.
Okay, so it's got a little whiskey in it. It's definitely. I mean, it does not have that typical bourbon. Oh shit! There's a bunch of corn in that, and there's 75% corn.
It smells like buttered corn on those. No, I didn't get that at first with water. It smells like buttered
I would say that the primary flavor then in cheap bourbon is not necessarily the corn as much as it is the maybe cheap barreling or the over barrel influence. Because the vanillas and the caramels.
I think what we're seeing here, and I think the kind of the theory that we're seeing here is you're seeing different areas in different parts of the country where you're seeing more barrel influence, and you're also seeing more grain influence, depending on where you are. And I think the distilleries across the country have kind of learned to use those to their advantage. I think Iowa. I think we talk about Cedar Ridge. The grain is what they're focusing on here. You're getting a very distinct type of corn profile, different than Kentucky, but still delicious. I think the fact that they give you some more barley in there, I get like a little bit of a lemon zing in this, and I want to know if you guys are getting that a little bit.
I'm not getting lemon. I'm personally not. I'm getting sweet buttered corn now. I didn't have that before, but that's what I'm getting with the cinnamon and baking spice.
This is beautiful because it's a much more subtle bourbon, not so punchy in the face, and it doesn't have the like the Leopold had a much more raw grain flavor to this, whereas this is a refined. It's like the scotches you get that are like candy floss and those really high sweet, very subtle flavors. Yep. So this is much more in that genre.
But I mean, like, think about it. You have the bourbons in Kentucky that have that type of, that are usually normally 6 to 7 years old. Yeah, how you have your bottled and bonds, which are about, can be 4 years old at least. But this, a non-Kentucky bourbon at just over 3 years old with this much flavor and viscosity, I thought is extremely impressive for what it is.
I agree.
Right. So
I agree.
I'm impressed the fact that there's 75% corn in this mash bill. Because honestly, I'm not going to say I don't smell it, but nowhere near the amount I smell it in some good old-fashioned dark Kentucky bourbon, right? I do get a little bit of a green note, and maybe that's the lemon you're talking about, almost like a green corn tassel, if you know what I'm talking about. You peel that. That's what I get a little bit. But the sweetness that's on it, and the fact that knowing the mash bill, and I'm not just getting overpowered by that corn. This is really an interesting bourbon to me.
Very
this does not
approachable.
Have the bourbon feel. It's definitely different. Now it's got sweetness in its vanilla. That's coming from the barrel. I get that. I do question the maturation barrel, the barrel that they're maturing in. You're saying maybe
new oak, but
but the quality of it.
But it's more of a neutral environment, and it's more of maturation.
It gets cold. It gets cold.
Damn right, it gets cold. They get snow up there.
You're looking at a climate that's more in line with what Kentucky experiences, but this bourbon is only about $40.
Yeah,
this is good. That's
this is definitely not your middle of the road bourbon profile, right?
Yep, absolutely.
I'm gonna look it up. Yeah, it's on my list. So, all right, our last one, I guess.
All right, last one. I actually want to take you guys to your own home state. I want you to go to Spirits of French Lick.
Oh, okay.
It's in the first batch of samples that I sent you.
French Lick. Okay, so we have Spirits of French Lick, Lee W.
Sinclair.
Okay, Sinclair, 4-grain bourbon.
He's been drinking.
107.9 ABV.
What?
Yep. So
to be clear, everybody, Jason's handwriting isn't the best.
My handwriting is terrible. I'm just saying that right now. So a little bit about Spirits of French Lick. So there's an amazing the distiller there is Alan Bishop, and he is an absolute maverick of whiskey. You know how in high school you always had that guy, or in college, that can make a bong out of anything? Alan Bishop can make a still out of anything. He's had distilling in his blood since he was a kid. The motto of his distillery of this bourbon is called "Respect the Grain." So it's very grain forward. We're looking at a number 2 char on this bourbon, which is interesting considering most of the distillers are looking at a 3 and a 4 char. So he really wants the grain to be present.
Filtered, yeah.
The fermentation, the type of distillation he does, all pot still, to get that creaminess of it. It's a completely different animal than I think we're going to taste from anything that you had tonight.
What's the bill?
So we're looking at a 4-grain mash bill. We're looking at corn, wheat, caramel malt, and also the outlier here, we're looking at oats.
Oats.
So corn, wheat,
filtered.
Corn, wheat, oats, barley, non-chill filtered, all the good things.
What's the amount of barley in it?
Not much.
Yeah, there's not a ton of barley in here.
Very grainy.
Yeah, and there's also not a ton of oats in it, but there is some of it in there.
I wanna pour this. You got another glass over there?
Of course, we got another glass over here, bro.
Because this reminds me of hedonism.
What? And now Drew finds out he doesn't remember what hedonism smelled like.
Exactly.
Stay tuned. No, I'm just kidding.
No, he's right.
So, Bob, hold on, we go.
Well, I mean, there's some tones to it.
Yep.
The grain is definitely.
I get a rye note.
The grain is similar, actually. It is different, but the grain is there.
Totally.
So this is 60% corn, 17% wheat, 13% oats, 10% malted caramel malt.
So why do I get like a rye note out of it? What is that? That's giving me that.
I think what you're actually tasting or smelling is the spice from both the oat and so oats. A lot of people wouldn't think would give off a spiciness to it, but oats do.
Yes, they do.
There's a creaminess and a spiciness that oats will give off.
Yes, that's the beauty of wheat and oats. It gives you a creamy mouthfeel. She'll filter it.
And that's the most impressive part of this whiskey to me, of this bourbon, is the creaminess of it. It literally feels like you're drinking, I don't know, something extremely viscous. There's a lot of texture to it.
Yeah, I don't particularly like the front palate, but the finish is that creaminess, that flavor, the oats, the oatmeal. It is a better finish than I think the initial palate. The initial palate tastes like any other bourbon to me.
Oatmeal is a good one, though. I mean,
but it finishes nicer.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those bourbons that Kentucky purists will probably be like, ugh, what's happening in this freaking bottle?
Oh, totally. The finish will destroy it.
I don't mind.
I'll agree with you on mouthfeel. Wonderful feel in the mouth as a whiskey. It is viscous. It is coating. It covers your mouth, and it's approachable. It's definitely, I hate to use the word smooth, if you will, but it doesn't like punch you in the mouth. There's a spicy note in there, absolutely. And I'm surprised to hear you tell me that that's oat, because I really have no experience with oat. I don't know why oat's giving me spice, but whatever.
Well, have you ever had oatmeal?
Winner.
Eating oatmeal and
just regular plain oatmeal, ain't no damn spice in that. That's like there's your wallpaper paste, dude.
Well, that's because you're adding too much or not enough water to it.
Zach
Andrews. That's because he's eating Quaker oats with all those fucking strawberries in it.
No.
you in Boston over here. What the hell?
All right, so Zach gets the dump bucket, Andrew.
God,
I actually do like this. It's very approachable. It's a
Smooth
different.
as a new moist. I love
It's a
that.
different genre. I mean, the oatmeal is really a great term for what this is.
It's very different. It's a little bit more innovative, kind of pushing the envelope. Like I said, you're not seeing a number 3 or number 4 char, which is typical in Kentucky. You're seeing a lighter char on this, and you're getting more of the grain. So the respect the grain mindset out of Spirits of French Lick is what drives all of their whiskeys. So
Interesting.
and this is all grain to glass as well. This is Indiana sourced. Every single grain in here is grown in Indiana. So
I don't mind it at all. So would you say that from a bourbon or Kentucky purist, would you say that this is for me? I feel like as what we're drinking, I'm open-minded. Would you say this is kind of hard for people? And all these actually tonight, are they harder for bourbon enthusiasts to appreciate because they're not as?
I don't think so. I think for most bourbon enthusiasts or just whiskey enthusiasts in general, most people are willing to try anything from anywhere. When you're talking about the Kentucky purist, I think this is a hard sell for them, and a lot of those bourbons in front of you that we tried tonight are probably a hard sell for them.
Gotcha.
Interesting.
I would say probably out of all of them that we tried tonight, probably the Frey Ranch and even the Cedar Ridge are probably the closest to more of a bourbon type of profile in Kentucky that you would think. I think the Chattanooga is very different. Obviously, the Ironroot's very different. There's just the Leopold is extremely different. So there's a lot of different profiles that are out there that I think a Kentucky purist would be kind of like, what the hell is that shit? So
That's like Ironroot is like a heavily sherried whiskey almost. I mean, it's like
well,
if you're all wondering, you just need to stick to McCracken.
Well, I will say, to get back on the major topic here, I think this has been eye-opening for me personally. This has been, and it's terroir, but also just to show the variety of what's out there. We just scratched the surface, right? I mean, there's so much more to even.
Yeah, I mean, we could go to Washington, California. I actually sent you one from New York to Conic. If you guys want to try that on your own, I mean, that's another one that's using all New York style grains. Great bourbon as well. They're growing and sourcing all their grains right out of New York there. In Dutchess County, I believe that's a 70%, 70 corn, 25 rye, 5 barley on that one. Very, very sweet. I got fooled on that one because I thought that was an actual Kentucky bourbon, and it actually was a New York bourbon. So that's
I feel a lot of spicy rye on it. Yeah.
Well, you're looking at a 25% rye mash bill on that one. So yeah.
Woo! Boy, it gets me in the nostrils.
Well, we will end on this dram tonight.
Yep.
Ooh, I'm gonna let that sit for a second. Jason, as always, thank you so much for your wisdom. This has been an amazing adventure tonight. This has been great. I'm going to buy a couple bottles based on tonight's episode alone. So I really appreciate your wisdom as well.
Mm-hmm.
So you know what, though? We had some comments that maybe we need to do something, reverse the flow of things. I said earlier that with the amount of samples you sent us, I feel like I need to write you a check. Maybe we reverse the flow and do a slew of samples and walk you through something completely and utterly different. I don't know if it's possible. I know the son of a bitch is always on it. But this has been eye-opening. I really appreciate the variety of bourbon that you've shown me, right? Yeah. I mean, because you said earlier, so many people say this. I raised my hand. I'm like, yeah, I'm the one of them. I'm like, I all taste the same. So this is, it's another step in the journey for me, right? Yep. There's one that I absolutely loved. That Tennessee, and you showed a bottle. I would never have even touched that on the shelf. I'd have been like, what kind of hokey crap is that, right? Yeah,
Chattanooga is making incredible whiskey. They just released the bottled and bond. The stuff almost tastes like it's finished. It's so incredibly It's so textured and layered in flavor. But that 111 cask, that if it's in Indiana, I highly recommend you guys picking it up, because not only, I mean, I gave you guys a bottle, it's about halfway down, but I mean, the chocolate notes that are in it, the honey, the caramel,
good job.
all of it. It's all there, and it really evolves over time too.
Good.
Yeah,
I love you, man.
They
This
did
is
a well
great.
job. This was fun. We appreciate you, brother. I mean, hats off. Thanks for sending us the whiskey and then taking the time to walk us through it. And it's not like you're taking a beating on the comments. I probably am. But
we owe you back.
Well, I mean, like, I'm glad I was able to kind of take you guys through this, because as you just saw with what we tasted tonight, it's bourbon doesn't taste the same. You go across the country, there's so much variety in what you can taste and what you like and what you don't like. There's so much variety out there. It's just like Scotch. Shayla from Whiskey Central actually sent me a Scotch blind tasting that I did earlier on when she was filling in for Roy at Aquavite today. So I did pretty good. I think I kind of called out. I called out my Bunnahabhain 12. That's my favorite. As soon as I taste it, I'm like, that's Bunnahabhain 12. So
Nice.
Busted.
Yeah,
Nice.
I sniped that one.
I have a whiskey video to shoot for her.
Oh, yeah, you do.
I actually finally procured the whiskeys to do it.
The final one.
It took me a while.
Well, I really appreciate it. We will end tonight on the Chattanooga. I think I want to drink that tonight. That's really good.
We're going to finish the Chattanooga if you don't mind.
Nope, I'm Ironroot.
You can have the Ironroot.
that Ironroot Tri-Barrel is one of my, I think, my favorite release that they've done, besides the single barrel that we selected at the Bastards Ball a few years ago. But that Tri-Barrel is absolutely amazing. You guys probably picked my favorite two out of the lineup, the Tri-Barrel and also the Chattanooga 111 for sure.
I love it.
It's
Hey,
good, but
That's good, right? That's
Tickets
good.
for Texas. We'll
Are you
see you
going?
there, brother. You're not going to be there. You're going to be in Kentucky.
What, for the Bastards Ball?
Yeah.
I'm see, like, my job has started to, we're going to be back in the office now soon. So it's all a matter of me trying to get out of there in October. So we'll see what happens. I'm still working.
I thought you had some tasting thing going on, and so you're just a busy guy. Hopefully, you come down to Texas and we cross paths with you, because our tickets are purchased and
We're
we're gonna
done.
have a blast.
We're there.
Love to see you there.
got a
Or
hotel.
come here anytime. You know that.
Yeah.
By
Absolutely.
the way, we've got a post show going on. Zach's got it. He's posted it in the chat several times. Jason, thank you so much.
Cheers,
brother.
buddy.
Cheers,
Absolutely,
man.
guys. Cheers. Thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Luncheon.
3, 2, 1.